Hello again. So this is the second video. This is the short introduction to Maya. So this is what Maya looks like, more or less, depending on your settings. You might have a gradient and background. If it's a slightly older version, it might be a slightly brighter interface, but essentially this is it. One thing, you will probably, when you start Maya the first time, you'll get this pop-up, and this is actually really good. This is a short 6-video section of different aspects of working with Maya. So the first thing here is how to create and view objects. Second one is how to move and rotate. Move the camera. This is how to move, rotate, scale, etc. Objects. This is how you select objects. This is how you edit object, reshape them. And then there's one on additional things. I recommend that you take a look at these. I'll just play them now, and then so you just get an idea of what's going on here. So this is the first one.
You can make NURBS and polygonal objects. Polygons are made of faces put together. Each face is flat. NURBS are made of curves and are smooth. Select either NURBS primitives or polygon primitives from the Create menu and select a shape. Click and drag to create the shape. To see shaded objects, press 5. To return to wireframe, press 4. The next movie shows.
So this simply explains how to work with both NURBS and polygons. The Create menu up here, there's NURBS and there's polygons. One thing I will say, when they say click and drag to create a polygon, this is sort of a newer thing that was added to Maya. It's a sort of a 3D Studio Max way of working. I tend to turn it off. So in the polygon primitives and in the NURBS primitives in the Create menu, I turn off this interactive creation. And for a lot of tutorials, you will need to turn it off, because the problem is that the tutorials would typically assume that you're creating a certain model of a certain size, etc. And if you're using the freeform drawing option, you don't have a standard model. So what happens when you turn it off is that if you create, for instance, a sphere, it will create a default sphere, or at least the same sphere as the last time, at the center of the screen. So that is well, just a small thing. I prefer to turn off the interactive creation, so think about that. The second video here is about how to move the camera.
To see objects close up, press F. To tumble or spin the view, hold the Option or Alt key and drag with the left mouse button. To track or pan the view, hold the Option or Alt key and drag with the middle mouse button. To dolly or zoom the view, hold the Option or Alt key and drag with the right mouse button.
So again here, so Alt and left mouse button will tumble the view. Alt and middle mouse button, for most people this will be the scroll wheel, unless they have remapped their mouse. And then for the in and out, you can use Alt and right mouse button, or you can obviously use the scroll wheel on the mouse as well. And then we get to the moving and rotation and scaling of objects.
It is sometimes easier to work if you can see your objects from many points of view. The default is a single perspective view. To see 4 views, tap the spacebar. The top, front, and side views are orthographic views. The tools that change the position, size, and rotation of objects are here. The manipulators are Move, Rotate, and Scale. The 3 colors on each manipulator correspond to the 3 axes: the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis. You can act on a single object, on many objects, or on parts of objects, which are called components.
Okay, so here, first of all, the part about the tab, the spacebar will pop back and forth is true for the default. You can see that it will actually pop to the one that I'm hovering over. The thing is that it will, if you have to go further than this, I would suggest you take a look at this area out here where you can go single perspective, 4-view, and this one is perspective and outliner. This is very useful. We'll get back to that. This is like this is like a directory showing of whatever is in the scene, and this can be filtered in different ways. So typically DAC objects are the only thing we want to see. We don't want to see like the underworld stuff and so forth. But this is really good because you can see everything here, and you can see how they relate to each other. So once we start to parent and group objects, we'll see them listed more or less like in the Windows Explorer or the Finder on the Mac. So you'll see like objects that are parented on the other objects will be located like in directories. Animation view as well, perspective and graph editor, hypershade for creating materials, and this is the hypergraph, which is like a more technical version of the outliner, etc. There are more than these, but these are like the quick ones. You can replace these with your own if you like, so you can go to panels and create layouts. So there's some default layouts and saved layouts, etc. you can set up. About the shortcuts for the move or select, move, rotate and scale, they are, if you were paying attention, they are the Q, W, E, R, T and Y. So essentially you can keep your left hand hovering up there. So you just have like a Q for the selection, W for the move tool. There we go. You can see you get this manipulator with arrows. E for rotate, and R for scale, and Q for select. T is like the last used tool, also called the non-sacred tool for some reason. That can be useful, for instance, if you're working on editing existing history, but we'll get back to that. Then there's the selection of objects part, so we'll just take that.
You can work on entire NURBS or polygonal surfaces in object mode, or parts of an object in component mode. You start in object mode. To select a polygon face, click and hold with the right mouse button over a polygonal object and select Face. Choose the Select tool. Click or drag over the faces to select. When objects overlap, you select through all of them. To deselect all, click on Nothing. To add to the selection, hold Shift and Control and click Unselected Faces. To deselect faces, hold the Control key and click the unwanted ones. Now you can work on these faces. To work on entire polygon objects again, use the right mouse button menu and choose Select. Or use F8 to switch between object and component mode. You can select components for NURBS surfaces in a similar manner. The next
Yep. So essentially this is working with components. Let's just press 5 to get this to shaded mode. So right click, go to face, and you can select faces. But there's different select modes. For instance, if I select like box here, you can see I'll select on both sides. If I double click my select, if I double click my select tool here, I'll get that over here. And there's this thing called marquee, which is this thing I'm dragging here, that's called a marquee. The other option is drag selection. We'll get to that in a second. But marquee has this thing called camera-based selection. Essentially, this is raycasting. So if I turn that on and I select this like before, you can see it will only grab faces we can see, or front-facing faces. So that can be a good thing to turn on now and again. The other thing is drag selection, which has camera-based selection on by default. This is essentially like painting selection, so can be faster for some things. And again, control will make you deselect, shift will make you toggle select. So yeah, lots of opportunities there. Go back to marquee, which is the default. You can also just press the reset tool up here. That will make it go back to the default settings. Okay, and then we have the reshape and edit objects.
You can edit polygonal or NURBS primitives. The channel box displays information for a selected object. The transform attributes, such as position and scale, are at the top. To view the shape attributes, such as radius, click on the word under Inputs. Some tools for polygon modeling are on this shelf. The next movie shows...
Okay. Here we get to the general UI of how to work with objects. So at the top we have the menu bar, obviously. What you should note is that there is there's quite a lot of features in Maya, and if you activate certain plugins, you'll get even more. So what you should note is that we have this menu set selection up here. So if you choose any of these, it will change the menu. So if I choose polygons, you can see it shifts to the polygon display. So the first few here are the same, so file, edit, blah blah blah, window, and of course the help menu are the same. But as I pop around here, you can see that a lot of them changes. The muscle, XGen, pipeline cache, etc. stays around as well, because they are like loaded plugins. Anyway, so if you're doing a tutorial or something and it says that you need to go to the edit mesh blah blah blah, and you can't find that, then it's because you're in the wrong menu set. So this, with the menu set selector, is in what's called the status line. So we have like the classic new, open and save. There's a filter for, right now we're selecting object based or component based or hierarchy based, and you can see over here we have like filter selection. So right now everything is turned on, but I can turn off surfaces, so now I cannot select surfaces. If I turn it on, I can select surfaces. If I right click, I can turn off certain types of surfaces. So polygon off, I can select polygons, etc. There's also snapping tools, so we can snap to grid, curve, surface, blah blah blah. Then there's some history related things. Everything by default, everything you do in Maya is, at least modeling wise, is recorded as a history. So if you select an object, subdivide it, extrude some part of it, blah blah blah, it will be stored as an action, more or less like in Photoshop, and you can go back and edit each of these steps if you like, with certain restrictions. One major restriction that you should be aware of is that if you change the number of polygons or vertices in the model at an earlier stage, that will heavily affect how later stages will work, because the way the history system, or the history system works, is that it will work on a certain vertex by number or certain face by number, and if you change the number of faces or vertices, it will change the numbering on them. So that is something you should be careful with. But changing how much it affects it, like how much it smoothes it, how much it rounds it, how much it moves it, or something like that is always possible. Then there's some rendering menu items here where we can create images, and then there's a type in area here. So right now it's absolute transform, so this I can use to type in how much I will move it. I can use relative, I can rename, or I can select by name. Underneath that we have the shelf, and the shelf is by default, these are default shelves. Mine is just slightly, I added a few things here and there, but they are like shortcuts to whatever is in the menus, and you can add things to a shelf by going to a menu. So for instance, if I wanted to add like let's say a platonic solid to this, so I can go to the menu create polygon and platonic solid, hold Control Shift, and when I click that you can see it appears here on the shelf. So now I have this shelf item that I can use to create a platonic solid. If I want to get rid of it, I can use the middle mouse button or the scroll and drag it to the trash can over here. On the left here we have like the toolbox, so select, lasso select, paint select, move, rotate, scale, and last tool, non-sacred, and then we have the different layouts. And down here we have the Maya website. Yeah, okay. On the right, this is where we actually change information. So this is the tool settings. Underneath that we have the attribute editor, and then we have the channel box. The attribute editor is the detailed version of what is going on with the model. So you can see we have these tabs at the top. So this model was created as a platonic solid, so this is it, and I can change the type of platonic solid it should be, the radius and things like that. That will result in a shape, which is actually the geometry, and that shape is moved and transformed by the transform node. If I do something to this model here, it will add another tab in between. So for instance, if I go and take extrude, and I extrude this like so, okay, and then I'll just go object, select that. You can see I have the platonic solid, and in between I have the extrude, and then I have the shape node, and then I have the transform. At the very right we have the material for the object located, so this is where I can change the material settings. If I go to the channel box, you can see I get sort of the same thing. I have the platonic solid, but I only have a subset of this of the attributes, and then I have the extrude, where I also have a subset of the attributes. What you'll see here is if I have my select tool, I will just select each of these. But if I select this non-sacred tool, or last tool used, or the hotkey T, then what it will show is the manipulator for the selected history item. So in this case for the extrusion. So I can use that to change things here. So yeah. And one thing in addition to this is that if we are in the attribute editor, I can only change information for one object. If I'm in the channel box, if I have multiple objects with the same sort of information, I can change it for all of them. So you can see if I change this, I can change the translate in Y for all of them. If I go to the attribute, it's still with both objects selected, and I go and say, oops, I need to go here, set this to 0. You can see it only acts on one object. So so channel box will affect many, and attribute is only the one object. And you can see these are color coded. So white is selected object, green is the last selected object. And that is important sometimes for some types of tools, that the last object, selected object, is of significance to how the tool works. And in this case, it's the object that is affected by the attribute. Okay, finally at the bottom we have the timeline. This can be changed by just typing a different range here, so maybe 100. And playback buttons. Down here we have like the feedback line, and we have a scripting line, mel script of Python. And if I want a bigger one, I can go to the script editor, and in here I can do all my work. As you can see, there's something in the history here. This is all the stuff that was done so far, and you can just you can see exactly what happened when I did something here, all the way from starting up Maya. So that is how it works. Oh, one thing I forgot: channel box. At the bottom we have the layers: display layers, render layers, and animation layers. Especially display layers are interesting because I can add layers or objects to layers, and then that layer will turn on and off the added objects. Just add that to this, add selected, and then I can turn them on. I can use them as a template, a reference, so references cannot be selected, or regular objects once again. So that was more or less the introduction to the Maya UI. I know it was a big one. Oh, by the way, be careful using this this view cube up here. I don't like to use it, but you can if you like. But be careful with it. It can do weird things. So it can turn your top view into a side view, etc. If you're not careful. So for instance, if I go say panels, orthographic, front, and then I click this, then my front is suddenly my right. It says front, but it's actually right view I'm looking at. So be careful what you're doing with the view cube. Back to perspective here. Oh, a quick way to change perspectives here is to hold the space bar and then go perspective, or right view, or top view, or front view, or perspective view. So something like that. That's it, and see you in the next video.